Soto and Chad here. And coming out soon is Final Fantasy Rebirth. Now, Soto, we've talked about this in the past, both of us
Mm-hmm.
being huge Final Fantasy VII fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get into the demo too much. The demo is just fucking awesome. I mean, play it if you haven't played it. Buy the game, pre order the game. It's going to be awesome if you're a Final Fantasy VII fan. But, spoiler alert, I want to talk about the infamous scene in the original game and
Mm-hmm.
whether or not it's going to play out the same in this new trilogy. And for those who know, and it's everyone pretty much knows this, even if you haven't played it, it's Aerith's death scene. Obviously, it's a very big moment in the original game. It changes everything. It comes as a shock because not many games you lose a party member like that. Not back then.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, someone that was kind of one of two Cloud's love interest. But as we have learned playing the first Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's not a remake of the game, it's a remake of the timeline. And now it's coming the rebirth of the timeline. And I love the fact that they're doing things differently because I didn't want to play the same old game with just updated graphics. I love the fact that there's this new story element. I know some people aren't a fan of it. I am. So, my question to you, Soto, is we've heard a lot of conspiracies, we've heard a lot of thoughts now that they've broken the timeline, because that's been established in Remake, they beat those smoke demons. I forget what they're called, the one that was controlling the time. Is Aerith's death going to be the same? Is she going to die? Or who do you think will die in her place? Because we know in Rebirth, something's going to happen because the game ends right after that. And I know they're going to do something, whether it's the same. So, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think her death is going to play out the same in Rebirth?
At the risk of this being a cold take by the time this releases, I'm going to say that everything that has been set up, if you played the remake, in my opinion, everything that's been set up has been to change that particular story beat. I have had that feeling since I started playing remake, and the way that they were kind of alluding that this is like the same story but it's a different timeline. The first thing I thought to myself was, Aerith is not going to die in this one. Or I didn't think to that somebody else would die, but at least I just have everything just is pointing to the fact that she's not going to. That this time is going to be different. Um, the way that it's set up, the story beats with Zack and everything like that, all that, I just feel like there's really no other way for it to go. I haven't really thought about anybody being replaced, although it would be really funny if it was Barrett, personally, um, just from that kind of concept. But the emotional impact that it had when I was younger was huge. Although it was more like, oh shit, I shouldn't have equipped her with certain things because I didn't know she was gonna die.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't like the level of emotion that can happen with this obviously updated graphics, which is like phenomenal. Um, but I don't think she's gonna die. I don't think she can. If she does, I think it will be very boring and it will kind of make no sense, like as to why we even tried to do this again. I get it. We're trying to update the graphics and we're trying to do everything, but like the whole storyline is based on this whole alternate kind of retelling of things, and I think it would be fucked up if she did die. Still, that's my opinion.
Correct. And though I will say, the original game, her death didn't have the weight on it as on me at first, and that's just because I always thought she was gonna somehow come back to life in the story. Like you throw a phoenix down on someone, they come back to life. I'm like, where the you? I had these, all stored up. But in all seriousness, once I realized, oh shit, she's not coming back. I'm like, wow, it hit me. But it did take a little bit. Um, Starting remake, I'm like, I at first I would have answered, no, she's going to die. They're just going to play it off differently, just because I always felt like maybe that death was set in stone. But then you're right. As you're going through remake and playing the game, and especially what I loved was towards the end when they're showing different flashes and they show you the ending to the original Final Fantasy VII. And Red
Hmm.
13 says, that's just another outcome. That's not our
Yeah.
outcome. And it just dawned on you like, this isn't a fucking sequel. And then I was like, oh shit. So, like you, I don't think Aerith is going to die. I think she knows though. Like somehow every death in every timeline, she gains those memories, and they show a little of that in remake when she whispers something to Marlena, and then all of a sudden this girl's calm. Like she just knows things that she
Yeah.
shouldn't know. So, and I think Sephiroth knows things that he shouldn't know too. So I think Aerith, always might have felt that she had to die or let that death happen, but she's like, we have to break it. Now, you're right. It would be very different if a Barrett died, but he kind of did
Be
die in
funny.
the first one, and the time demons, or whatever they're fucking called, stopped it, and he didn't die. And I don't
Yeah.
think Barrett's death would add that weight.
No,
Tifa
I just
has
think it
been
would be
brought.
funny if like Cloud was holding Barrett, like
Oh,
in the middle of the
you're
cathedral.
reenacting that scene. Yeah, no, you know what? That would be hilarious. I got you now. I wasn't thinking about like
In
that
my
scene.
mind lore.
Um, People have brought up Tifa. Kind of flip flop. I'm like, oh, but there's still so much story with Tifa and Cloud that now can be established and explored.
And Tifa's too
With
popular, man.
But no, but
She's
this
huge
this
right
game's
now.
gonna hit. This game's gonna hit us with something. This is They're not gonna play it safe because now you brought up Zach. This is where I'm a little concerned, and here's my very out there theory.
Hmm.
They show at the end of the game Zach in one timeline is alive. I don't know if it's in the same timeline these guys are at, but Zach somehow survives his incident in Crisis Core, and
Hmm.
he's bringing Cloud back. Which, if you haven't played Crisis Core, the end is he hides Cloud, he gets killed. The Cloud goes to his body and somehow just has a psychotic break. This whole game is about people having psychotic breaks. But Zach in the timeline is alive with a different Cloud. I don't know how that plays into the characters. That's where I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting because in a weird way, there's two fucking Clouds. I
Mm.
honestly think it's going to be bold. Cloud is going to die, and somehow Zack might become the main player, and that is a big take. But I think Sephiroth is saving Cloud because he even says it's not your time yet. He did not want to kill Cloud in that first game, and I know everyone alluded to the "you got 7 seconds," which is the times supposedly he came down and killed Aerith. So he's setting it up like Sephiroth, is trying to keep Cloud alive. I don't know why. I feel like there's a Cloud death coming. Now, they can play it off because there's two Clouds. Obviously, now, again, I don't know how it's going to work. It's very
Oh
weird
wow.
because at the end of the DLC, which I don't know if you played the
I've
Intergrade with
not.
Yuffie,
No.
they show the ending because it's more of a Yuffie story, but there's a secret ending. Zack busted into the church saying, I'm back because he's trying to get back to Aerith, and she's not there. He sees all these people kind of just taking shelter in her church because obviously that was Aerith's first love interest. Zach was sending her
Hmm.
notes while he was away on the mission that he never came back from. And I know I'm talking a little Crisis Core here, but so that the Zach Aerith love story is going to build more. But I also feel like the Cloud Tifa story now can go a little bit further in their direction. They can ship that as an official thing. They're gonna
Oh.
have a death. There is a death, and I think it needs to be something shocking, and I need to think it has emotional weight. And the fact, in a weird way, there's two Clouds. Again, I don't know how. I don't want them to overcomplicate it. I can see Cloud dying because Barrett will not hold the emotional weight.
Well,
Tifa
no, of
would.
course not.
Tifa would in a way, but I just don't think it makes sense. And like I said, you can lose Cloud, have Zach fill in for the third game, because then it's like a whole new timeline, and you still have that. Again, I don't know how. I just don't know where Zach fits in with this timeline. The fact that he survived, and I think that's why I'm excited for this. I'm very intrigued, and I don't want any spoilers. I'm going to be off social media for so fucking long, just to be like, I don't want to see a goddamn thing. I think in a weird way, and this would be bold of them to do, they're going to kill Cloud off and maybe bring him back in the third game. Kind of, because there's two Clouds, and I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like they need an emotional death, and Cloud
Yeah.
dying would be a shock. I don't think no one would expect it because he is your main character, and I think that would just be a good twist because I don't know. I just there's something there to me that says Cloud is going to die. Someone's dying.
They'd have to leave it, and I agree with you on that. Like as far as emotional weight, because something has to replace that. People are kind of expecting that kind of vibe when they played the second part of Final Fantasy. But you would almost have to leave it open ended because you do have to sell a third game. So you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you could kill Cloud. That's a really great like move, but you still have a third game that you have to put a character on the cover of.
Mhm.
So you do have to, I think, from a business standpoint, I know, not very exciting, but you do have to at least like let people think that he still might be alive or a chance, or else to finish the story, because I think that might be too controversial. But
But I love the too controversial.
I know it's great, but you do have there's still a very probably expensive third game that involves so much chocobo raising, because when I think about Final Fantasy VII, post, Aerith dying and everything like that, I think about a lot of chocobo racing and chocobo raising to try to get a black one and then try to get a gold one that was able to get to a certain island. I don't
Yep.
know how that's all going to play out. Um, but to go back to your point, I think you're right. There needs to be an emotional hit to that, that's going to be at that level. It's tough to do because the Aerith death is so hyped. Pretty much, if you've been on the internet for the last 25, 30 years,
You know it.
um, you know it. You've seen it. Even at the beginning of the internet, there was like threads that said, if you do things a certain way, you can have Aerith live, actually. And before the internet, we would talk about it, at school and be like, oh, I heard that in Japan, like if you do this, like Aerith doesn't actually die. There's an alternate secret ending, all that stuff, unconfirmed. Uh, but that stuff that it came as such a shock, as to you, like you said, it was a party member, and that was rare for that to happen. And then you had to really kind of readjust how you were going to play the rest of the game and what the emotional level was the rest of the game. And so for Rebirth, you do have to have something that's impactful like that, and that is going to drive a little bit of momentum and desire to finish off the story in the third game. And I think that the Cloud dying thing could at least add some intrigue to it, even if it's one of those fake death kind of a things, where maybe there's a second one, or who knows, or I don't know. The Final Fantasy VII storyline, by the way, if you haven't noticed, is
It's
very
very convoluted.
convoluted.
Yes.
It's incredibly like most Final Fantasy things are, and this kind of actually makes me want us to play the Final Fantasy Stranger in Paradise thing, because I think that us dealing with that and then also dealing with Final Fantasy would be really fun. But the story doesn't make a lick of sense to me. I don't remember the story beats so much of Final Fantasy VII growing up. I remember the things I had to do, like beat the Emerald Weapon and beat the Ruby Weapon, and the music. Obviously, the battle music is one of my favorite musical parts in any Final Fantasy game I've ever played. I just fucking love it. Um, so I hope that they maintain a little bit that emotionality, towards the end of Rebirth, and I guess we'll find out. If I find out, I promise you I won't spoil you, because it's going to be a long time until I play Rebirth. I got a lot of shit on my plate, but as soon as you find out, feel free to tell me.
We'll talk about that at a later date. But yeah,
Hell
I
yeah.
mean, there's just no emotional weight. I know, and throughout the last name that I've heard, Zach dying, which to me seems like the safe bet. Like, and that, because they could build up this Zach Aerith, love interest. Like, oh, they come back. Oh, because that's the other thing. You have not played the demo. Teaser a little bit at the end. They show Zach holding Aerith saying, I'm back. So I don't know where he finds her. But if you play the demo, he's holding on to her. He's there helping her. So he's part of the story. So, yes, to me, that is the safe bet of what might happen.
Mm,
I just think bringing him back, they need to use him more in the third game, and hence why I think with two clouds and the whole idea that there's a lot of these guys all have psychotic breaks. I just feel from the bottom of my heart, Cloud is the one. The main Cloud is going to have to die. Now, again, anything could be right. It's going to be a great story. I'm excited to play and find out, but that's just my opinion. So, uh,
guess we're gonna
but
find out.
we'll find out soon enough. But let us know in the comments who you think is going to die. What do you think of our opinions? And how excited are you for Final Fantasy Rebirth? But until next time, I can't wait to go Chocobo racing.